The original Moondrop Space Travel was an astounding hit and a fitting yet amusing name for a company called Moondrop. Now, the company has released a second generation model complete with a new colorway, but is it really new and improved? Despite the hype surrounding its release, I would not recommend these to most people. However, for some people, the new features can make it worth it. The case of the Space Travel 2 is identical to the original. It does look cool and reminds me of the movie Alien, at least with this colorway. However, it does come with the same issues as the first version. There is no top cover, so dust can easily get in, but that's a small issue. Pulling them out of the case, I have to hold on to the small tip of the earbuds. The problem is, it's so small that it's hard to grip with large fingers, so it is uncomfortable. I found that using the faceplate instead was much easier, but that ended up with me dropping them 50% of the time. Putting them back into the case is a similar problem. The earbuds should snap into place with the help of the magnets to help them align themselves, but unfortunately the stems of the earbuds seem to slip out. The charging port is also on the bottom of the case, meaning it has to lie on its side while charging. In my ears, the fit is comfortable and I can wear it for a maximum of 4 hours with no discomfort. 4 hours is purely because of the poor battery life performance. In our lab test, it lasted only 4 hours and 20 minutes. With the case to charge them, you can get it up to a total of 12 hours. The 4-hour cutoff isn't great, but it is manageable throughout the day. I can easily go through my morning routine for about an hour or two, and if you work without having to take them off, you can get an hour or two before you need to charge them. So what does the Space Travel 2 do well? Price is technically the outstanding feature of the Moondrop Space Travel 2, or even the original. For the price, it's hard to find decent noise cancellation, decent sound, and wireless connectivity. The real feature is the app features a highly adjustable EQ or a simple bass adjustment, but there is no need to use the app for daily use. Most people don't EQ their headphones, and for that reason, I don't recommend the Space Travel 2. The problem is, I don't think they sound enjoyable. Personally, the Moondrop Space Travel 2 sounds like everything is shouting at you while being a bystander 5 feet away. On how they sound, there is a slight underemphasis to the bass, as you can see with the test data in comparison to the SoundGuys preference curve. The bass, despite being underemphasized, still retains some presence and doesn't completely disappear in the background. In bass-heavy tracks such as End of Night, it tends to be overpowered in busier sections by other instrumentation and vocals. The mids sound prominent in comparison to the bass or treble, to the point that everything seems like it's shouting at me. There is a dip in 400Hz, which can make vocals sound closer than normal. When listening to the track Motto, the vocals tend to overpower the kick drums and the synths. The vocals lack detail, and despite the calm and collected vocal performance of most of the track, it sounds almost as if the vocalist is trying to shout to gain proper volume, despite being 5 feet away. The treble lacks brilliance and energy, which leads to instruments like guitars feeling dull. The lab testing supports this as highly underemphasized, especially compared to the SoundGuys preference curve. This is especially noticeable in tracks like Judgment 1, with highly energetic playing, but it mostly falls flat and unenergetic. The overall sound of the Space Travel 2 feels terribly compressed and unenergetic. All the instruments feel like they were crammed into a small room, leading to a very shallow spatial depth and narrow spatial width. With the overall score in MDAX at a 4.2, most people are actually likely going to enjoy how they sound out of the box. With a high timbre score, most people would say the Moondrop Space Travel 2 sound good. The distortion score is very low, which means that a lot of people will find it unnatural. The immersiveness score is within the average for truly wireless earbuds, since they shoot sound directly into your ear canals. Most people would find that they're likely to be able to place the source of a sound with little to no issue. If you're into adjusting and tinkering with how your headphones sound, the Space Travel 2 has great EQ feature. For a simpler option, there's the Tune EQ function, but there are only 3 options: Reference, Bass Plus, and Bass Minus. Where you can tweak the EQ to your liking is the online interactive DSP. This allows you to create a user-made EQ or use some from Moondrop. There's only a 5-band EQ, but the targeted frequency is customizable. For those audio enthusiasts out there, you can even layer a target curve underneath to make it easier to match a target curve. They even have a community feature to check out other people's EQ. Assuming you like to tinker with the EQ or would like to have a non-distracting pair of earbuds, they aren't horrible. For daily use, this is how the mic sounds like. I did find that when in a windy environment, the mic is unusable. If you'd like to check out the mic recordings in a simulated environment such as the windy one I mentioned, check out the review on the SoundGuys website. The noise cancellation blocks out 71% of sound, which isn't horrible but is on the lower side for most modern earbuds. One of the other issues I've had when using the Space Travel 2 is that there is a very noticeable audio delay anytime I watch a podcast or YouTube video. Turning on game mode made the latency much less distracting, but it's still noticeable compared to a wired connection. I think game mode should be the default at that point and not have the music mode. Moving between the two, there isn't an obvious difference on how they sound. I've also noticed that every time I pair back to them, they default back into music mode, making me have to switch to game mode manually by tapping the earbuds 4 times. While I don't like how the Moondrop Space Travel 2 sounds, most people would at least find it good enough. It's not too distracting and energetic to pull you away from a study session, which can make it a great set of study earbuds. If you're a tinkerer and would like to adjust how they sound yourself and have target EQ curves to apply, then you might find that these are a good fit. For most other people, you can get a better sounding earbud out of the box. Check out the original Space Travel earbuds, which sounds good out of the box, but don't have the same features as the Space Travel 2. Honestly, it feels like the Space Travel 2 could have just been a firmware update.